Good afternoon, everyone. So let's start. First, the reason for this picture. I was told in my lecture last time, not here, but my lecture last time was boring and not so funny. So I was asked to make it more impressive and more funny. So regarding the impressiveness, I will have some labs or let's say real-life demonstrations. And regarding funny, I took some pictures and maybe you will find them funny. If not, I'm sorry. If yes, then perfect. Okay, the topic is automation. Automation and networking. If you look at what is happening today, no problem. Oh, welcome. We just started. So if you look at what is happening in the networking today, the whole world and the whole networking is changing quite rapidly. And networking, how it was done when I was studying, and the networking, what is possible and what is available now, it's a completely different world. A lot of people, and especially people which are at the customer, the network engineer, which were educated like I was, they are still thinking that way. But the good thing for you is that you are learning now, which means that you can learn the new way and you will not have the huge heritage of all the issues and all the things which were in the past. So you must unlearn what you have learned. It's probably not for all of you. At least something may be valid for maybe your colleagues. So, if you look at what happened in the industry for last 1 year, it means 2017. Extreme Networks, that's one of the vendors which like 8 years ago was number 13. What we did, we bought several different companies. And because this happened, there is a huge heritage which comes from companies like Cabletron, which was, you know, changed to Enterprise in 1999/2000. Then there was a Motorola, Symbol, Wi-Fi solutions, which comes to Zebra, which was acquired by Extreme like something like 1 year ago. So the company like Extreme now do have a huge heritage and a huge hardware from different sources. And if you look at that, what is happening, it is not only with Extreme, which is number 3 now on the market. If you look at the number 2, which is HP, HP bought Aruba. So HP did have their own networking, and they bought another company, and they are merging two portfolios. The same thing happens to Extreme. The same thing is happening to Cisco, the number 1. Okay? And these changes are giving us the need for automation. Because if you have a switch from the vendor A in the network and the switch from the vendor B in the same network, if you have edge network where users are connected and devices are connected, then you have a campus, kind of distribution layer, then you have a data center, and each layer you have different kind of hardware, which means not only different logo and different color, but it means different CLI, which means different troubleshooting methods, which means different provisioning methods. Okay? Then it means for the networking team a huge amount of knowledge which they need to have. Okay? So just this slide, that's a huge heritage going to 1986, 89. So, what is the future of the networking? What is the way how the new networks are built? Okay? So, if you think about the switch itself, the switch does have a CLI. You have some commands which you need to enter, the switch will operate. If you need to change the VLAN or change the IP address, there are some kind of commands. Different vendor, different CLI. Even if you have one vendor only, does not have to be extreme. It can be HP or it can be Cisco. If you think about edge devices and the data center devices, they do have different CLI. Okay? So even if you think, okay, I will have a network which is only homogeneous, which is only one vendor, it will not happen. Okay? So the need of automation is here. So every vendor starts to talk about something which is called fabric. The cool thing is that every vendor talks about the fabric, and fabric from vendor A is a completely different animal comparing to the fabric from the vendor B. Okay? All of those do have something common. The common thing for the fabric is that the fabric should be self-formed. The fabric should be self-healed, and the automation should be there. So what I mean by that, imagine that you have a network like this, and you replace one device in the network. The idea is that the network will adapt, the network will self-heal, the network will self-provision. And this is the idea of fabric. Okay? So the fabric can be built based on completely different protocols. Usually vendors do data proprietary, which means that you need to put there the same vendor to fabric to be working, which is the way how the biggest vendor is making a vendor lock. There are other vendors which are doing more, let's say, interoperable. So for example, the idea of the fabric, which we do have, is that it is based on the standard protocols, which do have a lot of benefits. But let's think about that. So the network itself, the network device, which can be switch, which can be router. In general, today, it's mainly switch router. The device itself, you will connect to another device, and automatically the device will discover who is the neighbor. So today on the market, there are protocols like link layer discovery protocol, which is a standard based. But you have a proprietary protocols like Cisco Discovery Protocol, like Cabletron Discovery Protocol, like Extreme Discovery Protocol, Nortel Discovery Protocol, many, many others. Okay? So thanks God we do have LLDP, Link Layer Discovery Protocol standard. So devices can introduce each other and say, hey, I am this device, hey, I am this device. Okay? If you think about security, 802.1x standard for authentication can be used. If you think about IP addressing, IPv6, it's the way to go because IPv6 does have a DHCP and automatic link IP addresses by default already available. So the idea is that the device will boot up, will see the neighbor, and will establish some kind of neighborship. The neighborship can be done based on the BGP, which is a beautiful, huge protocol, which at the end can be one single command, which at the very, very end can be enabled by default. Okay? So based on the routing protocol, all the neighbors in the network will know each other. So it's not only about my neighbors, but it's also about neighbors of the neighbors. Make sense? So at the end, each device do have the knowledge about the fabric itself. And the cool thing here is you don't need to touch the device. Okay? The cool thing is that you just boot it up and let the magic happen. Regarding link aggregation and those things, of course, standard protocols for that. And if you need to provision the service over the fabric, you can. There are other protocols, other options how you can do that. Like VXLAN or some tunnel, like MPLS tunneling, layer 2 MPLS, layer 3 MPLS. I don't really care. The idea is that the fabric is there. The fabric will be automatically provisioned and automatically available. Make sense? Good to go? Okay. If you think about the traditional networking, The traditional networking is done that you have the device, edge device, which is connected to the network, and then you manually create a path to the other end where you want the device to be able to talk to. It can be VLAN, which you need to do, and each hop where you do routing, you need to configure. You need to configure the IP address, you need to configure the VLAN, you need to assign the port, you need to define which way will be used, which path. Of course, you can have automatic things like shortest path or least hops or some cost. There are protocols for that, agree. But you need to configure it and you need to maintain that. So the traditional networking is done that you have the core devices where each service needs to be provisioned, because each service means each VLAN, it means IP address. And then you need to spread that over the network. Think about the new approach which is available today. Think about service provisioning. Think about the fabric. And the fabric will be configured opposite, different way. The fabric will be configured that, okay, let's have an IoT. Everyone knows what IoT is. It's a buzzword. 3 letters, in reality it's 4 because there should be security. There is no S in IoT. Okay? So your watches are connecting to the network. Smartphones are connecting to the network. Today, intelligent building systems like turning on and turning off lights are connecting to the network. You can have bulb from Philips, which is Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Zigbee connected to the network. So electric bulbs are talking each other and they are provisioning the network for others. And then you need to have something where it connects to the network. These are the new things which are connecting to the network. Think about that. Think about the service which you need to provide. If you are in hospital, there are blood pumps which do have Ethernet port. If you go to Institute Clinical of Experimental Medicine in Prague, or it's still in Prague, on the south of Prague, they do have X-ray cameras which are Wi-Fi connected. Okay? So you don't need to go lay down and they take the huge X-ray. They just take a picture of that and they have it. These devices are going to the network today easily. Okay? The issue with that is, as I said, there is no security here. Okay? So if you connect the IoT thing to the network, and if you are an enterprise customer, bank, manufacturing, whatever, you cannot control that. Do you think that the network or security people do have a force to tell the X-ray manufacturer, hey, you need to update your SSH there or OpenSSL, which is there? No way. They tell you buy or not buy. Okay? So the idea here is that you take the network edge and you configure a service. So if you have a blood pump, then you will create a service for blood pumps. And then you say, okay, on this port, the service for blood pump. On this port, service for X-ray. On this port, access point. On this port, printer. And what you do, you create a service, you define it on the edge. So only on the place where the device is connected. And that's the cool thing. Because if the device does need to talk to the device of the same kind, you don't need to create a path. The network will do that for you. And by service, I don't mean VLAN. VLAN does not scale. If you look at the VLAN, how it was designed, I think it was the time when the computers were made from wood. A huge, huge amount of time ago. Okay? So the VLAN itself does have 4094 identifiers. Okay? It seems to be good and a lot, which is not today in IoT world. Okay? Even more, the VLAN means you have an IP address assigned to that, which means a subnet. which means something which needs to be created, which needs something which needs to be addressed, maintained, DHCP, all those things. Think about a service. It's something which is independent of VLAN. The service itself today, where it scales, I don't care if it is based on the VXLAN, which is a standard way, or based on the SPB, shortest path bridging, which is the same standard way but completely different animal. But amount of these services counts to millions, 16 millions and something. Okay? So the goal here is that you configure this port, there is a printer, this port, there is a print server. The same service. The service identifier 13,012,000. And the network will do that. Make sense? Okay. How difficult it is to maintain or to configure such network. So that's the vendor specific thing. So for Extreme, okay, Extreme is not Extreme only. As I said, we bought Avaya, we bought Enterasys, we bought Zebra, we bought Brocade. So for Extreme, original Extreme, it is one command which is enabled by default. For Avaya devices, it's 3 commands, which today, as it is, you need to enter them. But 3 commands, it's much less than 100 or 300 commands, which is for different vendors. Okay? It does not have to be very difficult. You don't need to use the force. You can use the management. So what is the benefit of using such thing like Fabric? That's on the screen now. If you think about the Škoda, which is the car manufacturer here in Czech, it's not only in Czech, but okay, if we focus on Czech only. If you think about the car manufacturer Škoda, do you know how often is a new car created? How much time it needs? How often does the car out from the factory? Counting only those 3 which are in Czech. What is the time between car 1 and car 2 in the sequence?
27 seconds?
38. 38 seconds, almost. Good? Good guess. So 38 seconds. Every 38 seconds there is a new car coming. The Škoda Auto is growing 12% per year. Double-digit growth. Okay? Can you imagine the network downtime? What is the cost? They can easily calculate it. They can easily calculate it. Every 38 seconds, that's a new car. Okay? So, if such company needs a network, the network needs to be stable. And whatever happens, a stupid idiot, stupid administrator, it can happen. Or the hardware itself fails. It can be a stupid guy who just cut the cable. It can happen, but the network must survive. Okay? These are the numbers which are based on customers which are using Fabric. Just to understand why. So, the next thing which I would like to mention and demonstrate, the trend which is happening in the network, in the networking in general today. So this is something, this is a video which was presented during the summer in the worldwide conference. And what you will see here, there is, okay, let me describe that. The concept of bright box, white box, gray box, green box, every vendor calls it a different way. The idea is that today, if you want to design a new switch, there's a chip vendor which you choose. It can be Broadcom, it can be someone else. The chip vendor itself, they produce something like design which is proven. So you take the chip, you take the things around, and you build the switch based on that. Then you design the CLI, you design the case, and you have a new switch. You design the CLI, you design the operating system. The idea is that today you can split the switch itself from the hardware from the software. Okay? So this year Extreme bought Brocade. What will be on the screen as Extreme switch, powered on, booted, and contacting the management, and the management choose which operating system the switch will have. If it will be Extreme operating system or Brocade operating system. Okay? Fully automated thing. So this is the video which just showed that. So this is the Extreme management. You create a site. The site is a place where you have something common. And for the site, you define things like VLAN, like operating system, like behavior, like your NTP, DNS, and all those things. You configure it once, you configure it in the management entity, which call it Extreme Management, Extreme Control Center. And you configure, for example, VLAN with some ID, and you configure it in the Extreme Management, in the management itself. When the switch boots, it will get all the config from the management. So if you need to change the network, you change it in one place only. In this case, they defined that the switch which will boot will get this IP address, and you can see operating system will be SLX, that's the Brocade operating system. This is the serial number. And now you just wait until the switch boots and the switch connects to the network. You can have some tuning like VLANs, ports, all those things. So let's speed that a little bit. Yeah, okay. This is the firmware tab. I will go through that in my lab, in my demonstration. Here you can see that there are two operating systems. One is for SLX, that's the Brocade one, and the top one is Exos, which is the original one. So now you can see it was the serial number was updated, the firmware was updated, and now it disappeared. And you can see device is now in this site, and they will. That's the automation which I don't need to comment. That's some automation stuff which happened on the background. And if we go to the device terminal, to the CLI, that's the operating system from Brocade. And you can see the VLAN was created and configured. So, the future and the automation here, which I'm trying to demonstrate, is you can have different vendors, you can have even common hardware, which is happening quite a lot in the industry today, especially these big players, and you have the automation tool which fully provisioning the network. Okay, regarding management. Yeah, Mr. Yoda call it control, we call it extreme control. So that's our management tool. We believe, in Extreme we believe that the network management system should be complete network lifecycle. Should be for complete network lifecycle. That means that it should be for design of the network, it should be for deploy and automation, it should be for operation and orchestration, it should be also for analysis and for optimizing, remediating, changing the network. So if we think about the design itself, The idea that you can create something like site, and you define that on this site, this will be the firmware which I will use. This is the set of VLANs which I will use. This is different port types, different rules for the network access. So on this side, I will have this kind of IoT things. And another side, I will have different IoT things. Okay? I can prepare it. I can work on that. I can define the guest access profiles. So if you are a university, you have different faculties. Each faculty can have their own option for the captive portal, where you log in, what options you have there. Think of the same way the healthcare. Different buildings, different sections can have completely different network behavior. Okay? So the idea is that you define that and you plan it. You define it up front. The next thing is the switch will boot and the switch will join the site. So it will be provisioned with the VLAN, with firmware, with configuration which you need, like SNMP, like credentials and all those things, automatic provisioned. We call it zero-touch provisioning. If you think how the provisioning of the network switch is done today, anyone does have an experience? Everyone, okay, cool. Are you here with me? Yes, you are. Okay, so if you buy a new switch, if you buy it for you, yourself, or for your daddy or grandma, usually that's a different animal, okay? But if you buy the new switch for the corporate, for enterprise customer, you unpack it from the box. Everyone needs to do that, okay? The next thing is serial port, okay? Believe me or not, there is no standard thing. So there are different serial ports on the market. So vendor 1, vendor 2, serial cables, okay? Then you need to have a notebook with a serial port. How many notebooks do you have a serial port today? Not really many. Yeah, there are some, but that's exactly the thing which you don't like, okay? Because the rest of the notebook is also designed the way like 90s or 2010 max, okay? So then you need to find out this USB to the serial port or something like that, okay? What is the next thing? You boot the switch, and guess what? The switch is not, even if you buy it last week, the switch does not have a firmware which is the right one. So you need to do the firmware upgrade, okay? Then the configuration which you need to customize. So this thing does take time. The time is money, you know that. So if you think about the zero-touch provisioning, the feature which I just described, the switch will contact the management will do the firmware upgrade, the management will do the configuration, VLAN and those things. Me personally, I was able to provision 52 switches in 2 hours. And the most time was unpack it, put it on the table, connect the cable. The next one. Okay? Then the management did the job for me, and then the rest of the time was, okay, pack it back and send it to the location, to the final destination. Think about that. Think about the cost. Think about that you do have customer, or you are a customer, which a lot of sites. I mean, in the middle of nowhere, there is a shop. The shop needs to be online. And guess what? On Friday evening, the switch at the shop will just die. So what do you need to do? Prepare a new switch, send someone who is experienced, who knows how to connect to the serial port, who knows all those things, and send them on site. Other option is pre-provision it, or even forget about pre-provision. Just send a new box there directly. Because the only thing which the guy which will be there on site needs to have is a screwdriver. To open the box, put it to the rack, connect the cable, wait until it's green, and then maybe call help desk. Is everything perfect? Yes, everything is perfect. Or not? Yeah, wait please. And then good. No certification, no term, no serial port, no nothing. The only thing which the guy needs to be able to do is a screwdriver. Make sense? Zero touch provisioning. Huge thing for operational people. A huge thing. Okay, configuration archives and configuration restore. Just think about that. I will demonstrate it a little bit later when it comes to the live demo. If you have the backup of the configuration from each and every network equipment. If you have the backup of the configuration, how difficult it will be to restore it. If you have a clever management, it's one click. Okay? So the idea is that you can choose, okay, this device is out of service, click the checkbox and put there the new serial number. And that's the only thing which you need to do, because the switch itself will boot, will contact the management, and the management say, this is the serial number for that guy? Okay. The configuration, the firmware, everything is provisioned. Okay? So, archives and those things. Device replacement, configuration templates, device discovery, scripting. The next thing is regarding the daily business, the daily operation. Alarms and events, of course. But what I would like to mention a little bit more, imagine I was talking about the fabric, right? Do you remember that? It was like 10 minutes ago. Good, you are good with me? Perfect. So, I was talking about provisioning the fabric on the edge of the network. Think about that we can define something which we call the profile. So you can have a piece of config which you need to do on the edge of the network when the device connects. So if I connect to the port, I will be assigned the engineering role, engineering profile. If I disconnect and the printer will connect to the same interface, to the same port, the service for printers will be assigned. If you disconnect the printer and you will connect the voice over IP device, the phone, the profile for voice over IP will be applied. If you disconnect that and connect someone else, secretary, administrator, the profile will be applied dynamically. So the idea is that you create this profile in some kind of management, and based on who connects, when it connects, under what conditions, you get the profile applied to that entity. I do not care if it is wired or wireless. I do not care if it is physical or virtual. So if you create a new virtual machine, I don't care it's VMware or Hyper-V or Xen Center, whatever. You create a new virtual machine. The new virtual machine will appear in the network. On the first physical port where it is connected, we will apply the profile. So if it is a SharePoint server, the DHCP service will not be allowed. If the server guy is, let's have it drunk, for example, and he make the mistake like create the DHCP server because, yeah, you know, my boss wanted me to create the new SharePoint server, let's do that. It's a server, choose the template. I don't care. It's a SharePoint server. DHCP offer will not be allowed on the network. It is not a domain control. It's not the DHCP server. Okay? So I don't care if it is virtual or physical, if it is wired or wireless, if it is local or over the VPN. So I apply the profile, which can be VLAN, but it can be service, with new naming, with the new, not naming, with the new approach with the fabric. It can be access control list, security thing. It can be quality of service, like rate limits. Okay? And based on that, based on who connects, where connects, I will apply the profile on the entity. If you think about IoT, this is the only way how you can have it secure. The next thing, Imagine that you know who is connected where because you have this software. Imagine more. You can do the analysis of the traffic which is going over the network. Imagine that you can see layer 7 information, which means application names, for each and every flow in the network, for each and every communication in the network. And for each and every flow, you will see what is the network response time and what is the application response time. There are 3 aspects of that. Aspect number 1 is the security. You see what is happening where, what applications are used where. So if you see a BitTorrent, maybe or most probably it is not a business critical application and it should not be there. If you see Netflix, it depends who you are. What is the customer, what is the segment of the network. Okay. So the security thing, we have seen users using printers as a network share. Users find out that the printer does have a hard drive and it is quite big and it is quite close, so they were sharing the data over the printer. Is it secure? Definitely not. Is it managed by the IT? Yes, but not the way how they would like to. Another aspect is the network operations. So, help desk people. If someone, a user, calls to the help desk and asks, you know what, the network sucks, the network is bad, the internet is down, that's the mode what my father is using, the internet is down, the internet is not down, you know, there's millions of computers, they are not down. So, think about that. If the help desk person can search for the user, yes, he can. Why? Because we know where the user is. If the help desk person can see what applications is the user using, and for each application, what is the network response time and what is application response time, the help desk person can determine if the issue is network related, application related, server related, location related. So instead of creating 3 or 4 tickets, going to teams which are working with the network, the help desk guy will understand if it is a client or the network or the server issue or application. He will create only 1 ticket. Another aspect here is sometimes the network is bad, but it's not the network what is bad, but it is the DNS service which is bad. Kerberos service, radius service. Those things which you as a user do not see. But if that service is not performing well, the user experience is very bad. Okay? So the automation in this is also important. You can monitor it, you can create tickets on that automatically. Okay. Compliance monitoring, other things. Think about that you have all those details in one single database. And you can share that information with anything else, with anyone else. What I mean, okay, and I will talk about it and I will demonstrate it. Think about the security aspects, security solutions. If the security solution will detect a threat, antivirus, anti-malware, anti-anything, anti-everything? What is the best English word for that? Anti-bad things, okay? So if that solution will detect that there is a threat in the network, there is something happen, that anti-whatever will tell us, and we do have a control over the network. The management, the automation part can disconnect the user, can quarantine the user, can apply different service, can start a record of all the traffic. Just think about those aspects. I do have a lot of slides on that. Okay? So, before we will go to this slide, let's have this impressive part. Okay. So, you see, Murphy law or general effect. Okay, so let me show you. Okay, so we do have switches which are physical, but we also do have the switch as a virtual machine. So what you see here is a VMware, and there are two virtual switches which I will just boot, and I will let them to boot. And in the meantime, while they are booting, let me show, it's not the magic, but it's close to. Thank you. I'm trying to be more funny. Yeah, I know it's not perfect, but you know, what do you expect from technician? Okay, so the first thing which you can see here is the firmware management. So for this kind of devices, I do have a firmware already in the management. The firmware is marked as a reference image, which means that this image will be applied, will be sent to the switch when the switch boots. Okay? The next thing is the site concept. So let me show you sites. And guess what? My browser does not work very well with sites, so let's try another browser. And you will see that better. Okay, so let's go to sites. And yeah, I still have 12 dates. Discover actions. So if the new device is discovered, what I can do? Okay, so things like add the device to the database, configure traps, configure syslog, enable statistics, add to the archive, add it to the map, to which map I would like to do that, run some script on discovery. If it is this vendor, this topology, run this script. I can configure the policy profiles. I can do the access control. The next thing which we have here, VLAN definition. So just some an example. I do have a port template, and I have some default config which will happen. Okay? So I started two switches. Two switches were discovered, and it depends how long I'm talking. Look at that, what is happening. It is installing the firmware. So while I'm talking, the firmware was transmitted from the management to the switch, and the switch is being provisioned with the firmware. So you can see that two devices were discovered. This is the firmware. If I try to show you more. Yeah. So the firmware version is 22.2.1.5. Who cares? It will be different after the upgrade, okay? The thing which I would like to demonstrate is, okay, I can edit the device. That's something which you have seen already on the video somehow, okay? But in this case, I can define the actions. I can define the annotation. I can define VLANs. So sales is always evil. Thank you. Okay, so I just configured this VLAN here. I will tell, okay, the port number 2 will be inter-switch link, and regarding VLANs, it will be the sales and the finance VLANs will be tagged.
42.6. Huh?
Yeah, 42 is generic answer for the generic question of the world, right?
Yeah.
And 666 is the sales guy. Okay. So this new switch will get the IP address 192.168.52.22/24. I can choose which interface it will be. Okay, so on out-of-band interface like this, and just save it. Okay. If I do refresh, you see that one of them is staged. That's one which I configured. The second one is pending edit. So I can do the same thing which I mentioned now to do it a different way, or I'm lazy, I will just leave it default. Okay? So now it depends how quick I was. Oh yeah, that's the VMware issue. So let me close that and open it again. Now it depends how quick I was, because maybe it is already configured, maybe not. And if it is not, then I will need to dance because I already mentioned everything. So now you can see that this guy was configured. So it should disappear from here. And it is not, so I did something wrong. The first thing which you can see now, the patch is applied. So you see different firmware is here. So it should finish in something like 2 or 3 minutes. This one did not, so it will reboot again because I did something wrong. The second one should finish well. Yep. So we do have a recording, so there is a chance that I will reverse engineer what I did wrong. And we will see. Staged. Come on. So it seems like we will need to return to that. Yeah. Generic effect, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's this one, pending edit. So edit. Just save it. Let's check. That's the thing which I don't like. If someone I'm too quick, then I need to dance or sing, and you don't want to see any of those. Okay? So it seems, yep. Now it's good. I can go to devices. I can go to my map now. And you can see then now this device is on the map. If I go to devices, that's this guy. I'll do device terminal, run forest. If I do show VLAN, you see there is a VLAN sales, there is a VLAN, there is a VLAN finance. If I do show, okay, the second one, is there already also show VLAN, show port VLAN. You see that on the port 2, I do have VLAN finance and VLAN sales. So that's how I configure it. Okay? So the idea again here is, oh yeah, the thing which I would like to show also Imagine that this device is now faulty. So I just remove from the service and put the new serial number, and the new device will just get the same config. Make sense? Okay. Where's my PowerPoint?
I have one question.
Excellent.
For example, let us say we have a local area network that have 100 endpoints, and this network use extreme devices. After that, we come up with one Cisco device and put in the middle of this network. Can you configure that device by this cycle?
Okay.
Or it should be the extreme device. The new device can be the Cisco device or something, other number.
Okay. Let me, because this is being recorded, so let me rephrase or repeat your question just for the recording, okay? So if you have, or if the customer does have a lot of extreme devices in the network, and the beautiful world is there, like you see, and then someone will come with the Cisco switch or third-party switch in general and put it in the middle of the network. Will the network break, or will it be able to work together? How that happens? Is that kind of question? Okay. Thank you for the question. Thanks for all the other questions which may come. Okay. And now, why the hell you would like to buy a Cisco switch and put it in the network? That's the sales answer. The technical answer is some things will broke. Like Cisco do not support the zero-touch provisioning as we do. So you cannot, or the Cisco switch will, when it boots, it will not get the IP address, it will not introduce itself to the neighbors, and it will not contact our management. So it needs to be done different way. So our Extreme management can periodically query the network. And if the Cisco device is found, then we can provision it. We can provision it similar way, not the same way, but similar way like with Extreme. Okay? So the world is not so beautiful, but still you can work very well with that. Okay? And believe me, Cisco is #1. Sorry for that. Yeah, like there are countries where Cisco does have 99% market share. Okay? Czech is not that country, but for example, Croatia it is. Okay? Officially in Croatia, 98-99% market share. And yes, guess what? We need to survive in that environment. So yes, you can manage with our management, you can manage hybrid network. Okay? Usually it is opposite. Usually we find out a way to sell one Extreme switch to the Cisco network. And then the customer is so happy that the next time, oh yeah, that's a sales, but yeah, it is the reality. The next time when the customer buys the switch, he does take an advantage of, hey, Mr. Cisco, what is your price? Hey, Mr. Extreme, and you can choose. Because the management will do the job for you. Right? Okay? So the dual vendor strategy is quite common for enterprise customers, for the big customers, because yeah, guess what? If you are only one color, what price you will get? If you can choose and say, hey, Mr. Customer, hey, Mr. Vendor, your position is better. Yeah. Yep, that's the life. Did I answer your question? Thank you. Okay. So, I already mentioned that you can have a profile, piece of configuration, which you create in the GUI, and then you have it in your switches. The idea is that you configure it in one place, globally, centrally, and then you have it distributed to all the network equipment. Cisco can do that, Extreme can do that, HP can do that. It's a global thing. The way how we do that is unique. Okay, so the idea is that you don't configure it by the CLI because the CLI is different. You do not configure it by some scripting because scripting is something which you need to maintain. The GUI is the right way. Okay, so in our case, you define the name like student, like printer, like IoT, like bring your own. You define the services, and for those services, you define access control rules. Quality of service rules, port speed, It can be anything you can imagine in the CLI config. Okay? You just bind them together, create it as, let's call it macro, for example, okay, and apply it to the switch. And then when something will connect, you will get the profile and apply the profile on that dynamically. And that's a cool thing. Imagine that you have the port switch and you disconnect the printer, and instead of printer you connect my notebook there. The whole security thing will change. Because now it's me, it's engineer. If I disconnect myself and connect their IP phone, okay, reconfiguration happens automatically. And if I connect my computer behind the IP phone, of course it will work. I have two entities behind the port. Okay? So that's an example how that can be done. Okay? Not only access controllers, but also quality of service, also port speed, PoE setting, and all those things. Yes, automation is the thing which is the most important these days. Okay, question. If you think about the data center, if you think about cloud, any one of you is using some navigation system, like GPS navigation system, like Waze, for example? Anyone knows Waze? Excellent. Do you know how often changing Waze is changing their network infrastructure? How often they are updating their source code to give you the best route? 30 minutes. Every 30 minutes there's a new code, new algorithm. Do you think that there can be the thing which I was talking to the chess, the power distribution company and power creation, manufacture company here? Okay, let's have a new SharePoint farm. Yes, no problem. Right click, right click, right click. And in 30 minutes, they do have a completely thing provisioned, talking about storage, talking about virtual machines, talking about memory and all those things. And then it takes 2 weeks to configure the network. Okay? It takes 2 weeks because you need to create VLAN. Someone needs to approve it. Someone needs to provision the VLAN all the world, on all the network. Then you need to assign the VLAN subnet. Then you need to do the routing, the security with the firewall, all those things. The reason why the networking department is today on the -2nd floor, spent in the room without glasses, is because everyone is waiting for them. Being a network engineer is not a prestigious thing anymore. Okay? The networking is blocking the business. It is the break in the business today because the automation tools are not present. Okay? So if I talk to networking people today, one of the biggest issues with the network manager do have today, he's afraid that if the business decision will be done, I need to be more agile, I need to be more quick, they will move to cloud. They will. The price for the cloud is affordable today. And you can have your own and beautiful network in the cloud. And the only thing which you will, Mr. Network, maintain is access switches. And even that can be replaced to just PoE injectors for your wireless. And the wireless can be in the cloud. The only thing on site will be access point. Okay? So this is the thing which today drives the automation. Okay, let me demonstrate it. Okay, I prefer Google Chrome, it's easier for me, so let's return back. Okay, so what you see here on the screen, it's a lot of text, but the lot of text does have a lot of information. So you can see devices which are in my network or which were in my network in the past. Do you remember this operational thing which I shown on this graph? Okay, that's one of those. Okay, so for each and every end system which was in my network or which is in my network, I have details like, is it still present or not? Okay, you see that my iPad, it's not present because it's saving the battery. So if I start my iPad again and try to force him to connect to the wireless, 3, 2, 1, not yet. Yeah, it's iPad. It's asking for permission. Bill Gates, hey, it's not Bill Gates, that's the other guy, right? Steve Jobs. Okay, so if I refresh, the device is up, device is connected. Okay, so you see when it was last connected, what IP address, what MAC address, what is the vendor, what is the host name, device family, device type, connected to the network. A little bit later you will see username. What else I see here, for example, is switch IP address, nickname, you see the access point name. You see the BSSID, which is a radio, you see SSID. You see the profile which is applied. You see reason why the device is in the network. Why the device is in the network connected this profile. This device is unregistered. Okay, so let's change it.
Register.
Let's register, yeah. So, let me do some... Okay. Now you see my screen, and if I go to the beautiful web page, whatever web page I'm redirected to, oh come on, let's go to Disney, who cares, I'm redirected, okay, that's captive portal. This session is in English, right, or do you want to have it Polish, Romanian, Russian, simplified Chinese maybe? No? Okay. Sorry. Okay, so English. So that's a captive portal. It can be fully customized, who cares? What is the important thing is I can log in. Student 1, yeah, that's a very old one which do not have a good GUI or good, so yeah, the password. That's a secure thing, you see only one letter. Oh yeah, I will be the good guy. I promise. Okay, so in a few seconds I will be network granted. Let's do the same thing on this one. Wireless. Can you connect to wireless, please? Hello. Now I'm connected. Let's share my screen. Okay. Let's go to Disney also. Okay. Maybe this will be better. Check. No, English, right? That one was student, right? So this will be stuff. Oops. That's wrong. Not sure what would happen. Stuff 1. Come on. Can I have numbers, please? This one. I don't worry. If you hack my system, I do have a snapshot, so I can recover. That's easy. Okay. I agree. I'll be the good guy also. So in a few seconds, I'll be access granted the same way like I was there. But the cool thing is there now, look at that. I see the username. Staff 1, student 1. I do have that information. I can search. I can do the network troubleshooting. Guess what more? I was unregistered, right? Now I am staff or student. So if I choose one of them, and I will look at the history, you see the profile was unregistered until this time, and from this time I am already registered. Different profile is applied. Okay? Different profile means different access control lists, but also different quality of service. Okay? Make sense? Imagine this happens fully automated way. So I can disconnect from a wire, connect to the wireless, I'm there. I have all these details. I have the risk level. I can do the assessment and I can understand if the device is healthy or not, if the device is compliant or not. What is the security status? So that's just the screenshot, what we can see, what we can have. So now imagine that all these informations like location, like the security posture, like the username, MAC address, IP address, device type, triangulation information, all those things are available in one single database with the API, with the interface. What that means that you can have other systems which will update that information, or other systems which will get this information and share it and use it. Here's the list of partners which Extreme does have, but it does not have to be Extreme. The approach of having a single database is unique. The approach of having that information available, it's not unique. So, different things. So, some use cases. Do you like the security firewall?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I try to be funny. Not sure how good I am. Okay. So, think about the firewalls. Where is the firewall in the network placed? Usually at the edge. Why it is at the edge? No, not really at the edge. They call it, we call it perimeter. The edge is where the user is connected. Okay, the perimeter is where the network is connected to the internet. Okay, that's the place where usually the firewall is. The reason why the firewall is there because it is between two security zones. So if you are a customer which do have more security zones, you put your firewall between security zones. Okay. So for example, if you are a nuclear research institute in on the German side of the Czech-German borders, they do have 250 employees. They do have a 700 access rules for firewalls. 700 rules for 250 employees. Yes, I can have three rules for me. Okay, why? They do have different rules based on location. They do have a different rules based on the daytime. They do have different rules not for me as a user, but the combination me and the device. This device is compliant. This device does have the network access. This device is not compliant. It does have different network access. While I am connected on both with my credentials. Make sense? I don't need to have like credentials for compliant device and credentials for non-compliant device. I'm only human, okay? My password is always password or student 1 or student 2 or whatever. That was a joke. Thank you. Okay. So, the firewall is placed between two security zones. The firewall do have no knowledge where the user is connected. If it is on switch 1 or switch 2. The firewall has no knowledge if the user is on the 3rd floor or on the 2nd floor. If you want to have a different security zone on the 2nd floor and 3rd floor, you are in trouble. Because you may have different security zone on the 2nd floor and 3rd floor, but the firewall works based on IP address. So it means that on the second floor you need to have a different subnet than on the third floor, which your users will kill you because they cannot roam. They cannot watch YouTube while walking on stairs. And that's the most important thing, to watch YouTube. Okay, maybe not, but having a phone call, it is a business critical application. Okay, voice over IP over the wireless phone, that's a business use case. I need to allow that. So the firewall can get the information about the user location from the management system. Make sense? The firewall can get information about the user, not only about the IP address. So if you are a firewall vendor, you would like to offer your clients rules for users, not for IP addresses, because IP address can change. And no one really wants to maintain MAC to IP to user database. It should be dynamic, because otherwise you have the networking department. Okay, you moved. Okay, let's move that. Okay, so the firewall can get the user information from different sources. It can read the information from logs from the Active Directory. But guess what? Some devices cannot be in Active Directory. Even more, some people are buying MacBooks just because they don't want to be in the Active Directory. They want to be free. Okay? No Windows group policy applied. Some people do prefer Mac just because of that. Of course, it does have a beautiful and best technology and a beautiful logo and color, whatever. Of course, that's fact. But they do not need to be in Active Directory. Okay? So they can do whatever they want. Even if you are in Active Directory, there is a protocol which is called Kerberos, which is used to log into Active Directory. The Kerberos protocol works the way that you ask for the key with the credentials, then you get the key ticket granting ticket, whatever. You get the key. So the key is already there. Then you roam, and this is the issue. You roam from wired to wireless. So on wireless you have different IP address, right? This is a different MAC address, different subnet, different IP address, but you already have the key. You are not authenticated against the Active Directory anymore, so the firewall will not get the information from Active Directory. You have new IP address, you are a user, but the firewall does not know that. So there is a reason to integrate. Okay? So the integration with Palo Alto, for example. Palo Alto is one of the really big and important next generation firewall vendors. The firewall has no knowledge about if the user is connected or user is disconnected. The switch knows that if you disconnect. The access point knows that if you send deassociate or deauthenticate. The firewall has no knowledge about that. So if you log out, we can tell the firewall, hey, by the way, close all sessions. That's how the Palo Alto works. You can see that in this case, we do have a username here because we told to the Palo Alto. With Fortinet, that's a second really big vendor on the security market. Okay? The idea is that we can send the FortiGate information about location, about user, about device type. All those things which we do have in our management. So the firewall can react on that. Even more, we do have something which is called distributed IPS solution. Imagine that the firewall does have not only firewall, but this is the anti-everything. Next generation feature. Anti-malware, anti-ransomware, Okay. So if the firewall detects that there is a security threat, the firewall can tell to network management, hey, Mr. Network, remove that guy. The firewall is between two security zones. The firewall can block the attack if the attack goes through the firewall. But if the user is here and the victim is here, and the firewall is here, the firewall cannot block you. Okay? We do have a customer which is one of the ministries here in Czech, and this ministry did implement a feature or solution which is taking detection on ransomware. Everyone knows what is ransomware, right? That's a cool thing which encrypts your hard drive, and then the beautiful guy will call you, hey, do you want to decrypt it? Just pay. Here's the Bitcoin thing, okay? So we will help you to get your Bitcoin account, and you can just pay in Bitcoins. That's fine. Okay, there is a business behind ransomware today. Okay, so there is a solution which can detect the ransomware that this is infected user. The bad thing is that this solution works. I do have a slide for that. Oh, okay, later, but I already started to talk about that. This one. So, Baroness Data Alert. That's a solution which is detecting the ransomware. They're quite good, bloody expensive. And they can detect based on logs how many files you are accessing and how quick you are accessing the files. Based on that, they can detect that there is a ransomware. You are infected. If you change one file per second, that's usually something which a human can do. But if you change 10 files per second, that's usually something which a human is not easy to do. Okay? So they can detect it based on that. But the issue is that in the log, there is a username. So what they can do? They can tell, hey, here is the beautiful report. This user is infected. Okay? Maybe they can do that beep, send an email or something. Guess how many administrators or security people are on Friday late night available to react on that? Like this, or close to that. So, this solution do have some options how to react on that. Like, disable the account. Do you remember what I said with the Active Directory, Kerberos granting ticket? The key, the user does have a key. Even if the account is disabled, the user does have a key until this key is expired. He can open other doors, which means other server. Okay. So this ministry did have in place a solution which, if you detect ransomware attack, shut down the server. It's cheaper to shut down the server to stop the business than to pay this beautiful ransomware help desk to pay for decryption keys. This is the use case. This is a use case. Okay, but we know where the user is. So we have an integration with this solution. So they will tell us. Do I have animation on that? Oh yeah, animation, cool. So the anti-ransomware system will tell us this user is infected. So instead of shutting down server, I will disconnect that user. When I was talking to our engineers, I said, but the user can have more devices. I said, yes, it's still better to shut down 2 users or the user on 2 devices than to shut down server. It's still way, way better. You are working with risk, right? Make sense? So we do have 10 minutes, right? I do have something like 80 slides to go, or some real demonstration.
Real demonstration.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. You want me to dance, right? Again. In this case, that's username user is admin and the password is password.
All right.
That was easy. Okay, so Policy and objects. Rules. In this case, I do have rules which are the firewall rules. And the firewall rule is saying, okay, if you are going from this port to that port or whatever, and you are a student, going to the staff server, which is something which probably will not be allowed, correct. It will not be allowed. And if you go by SSH, it's not only not allowed, but it is locked. Okay? Then we have a student accessing a staff server which is just denied. That's for all the other traffic. And if you are a student going anywhere, then this anti-firewall, this firewall will apply the beautiful things like antivirus, like web filtering, DNS filtering, application control, IPS, SSL, all the next generation beauty. They call it next generation firewall, so this is the next generation stuff. If I am a staff, I do have different antivirus setting, different web filter, DNS application, IPS, and SSL inspection setting. Make sense? Okay. So this is the firewall setting. On the other hand, we do have our extreme management. Okay, extreme management knows that this one is a student and this one is a staff. I hope it's that way and not opposite. We'll see. So the extreme management tells that to the firewall. And if you go to monitor firewall user, you see that staff is online and the student is sleeping. Student is sleeping, not student is sleeping. Okay, so if I wake him up, wake it up. Okay. Yep. I know I have something like 5 minutes still to go, 6 maybe. Okay, it seems that this one is up again. If I do refresh, wow, it's updated. Wow. Yeah, the important thing is that the firewall knows who is the user. Okay, so let me do some network test, right? So 192.168.10.127. This is one. Yeah, it's connected. Cool. 208. This one is. Yeah, it will connect in a few seconds, especially if I manage to log in again, unlock it. Okay, now it's connected to the wireless. Okay, so if I am lucky, or if you are lucky, I will share my screen now. We are lucky, that's good. So if I go with a beautiful web server to the staffserver.demo.com. Wow, I'm connected. It works because this is a staff. In this case, student does have not so nice, not so cool. And if I make it happy, we might make it working. Okay. In this case, I will go to the staff server. No, staff server.demo.com. And if you are really happy and you have really good eyes, you will see that somewhere here it's loading. It's trying to load and it will never finish. Because this device, it's on the same subnet, on the same access point, the same SSID, but it will not it will not load. Okay? So that was the second rule. The first rule is even more, let's say, cool. If I go on this guy, and if I open the SSH, which is somewhere here, and I'm going by SSH to the staff server. Have you ever tried to put the SSH on such small thing like this? It works. It is not usable, but it works. Okay? So you can see that I'm able to SSH, right? If I do the same thing here, which is the last part of my demo, SSH. And this is the video of last thing. Okay, so yep, you can see that it was the last thing which I did. Why? Because this was detected as a threat. The threat was logged, sent the log to the management, and the management said, action, quarantine. Okay? So you can see that you don't see anymore the content. Whatever I put here, you don't see, because it's not in the network anymore. If I do refresh here, you see that student 1 is quarantined. If I do refresh here, you see the student 1 is quarantined. If I want to see some details, run Forest. I do have all those details here, and if I go details here, I see I'm on the blacklist. And the reason why I'm on the blacklist is ID 6. Almost. That's a 666. No, this is what the firewall told me. Firewall told me 6, so it's 6. If the firewall tell me, hey, because the guy is idiot, it will be because of the guy is idiot. Okay. So let me summarize that. There's a huge trend these days, which is about automation. There are tools which are available even for free on the market, which can do automation of anything with anything. One of those anything is, for example, Tesla car. Have you heard about Tesla? Yeah. Okay. The Tesla can be connected to the network, and the Tesla can be connected to automation tools. There is another tool which can be connected, which is a coffee machine. There are sensors. So what I have seen, okay, if the alarm clock wakes me up, the coffee machine starts to make me coffee, and the Tesla car is started. All that thing is running over the network. All that thing can be automated, not only as your daily business, daily life, but also the network. And that's the really huge thing which is happening today on the market. Customers, vendors are investing a lot to automation tool. So, thank you for your time. If you have questions, I'm here. If not, it was a pleasure. Have a nice Christmas time.